it was like, I felt it was not even close. Night and day difference. I'm 47 years old. I just run a hard marathon. I felt way better after running faster than I did in New York, where I could barely walk. Washington Post picked it up, and it was like in the Post. Washington Post did a second story on it. I was really solid, which was crazy to me. I was really solid, had a good 2 weeks of work and focused. I could not put my finger on any other factor, any other variable that I changed. The recovery was that much better. Pretty awesome to see how fast I could run.
All right, so I'm really excited today to have Chris Farley with me, and a little bit of backstory about Chris and me, and then we'll talk about his backstory. But we ran track together at UVA. I think you were 1 year younger. I was doing the half mile, and you were doing distance, right?
I was doing distance. You were on the faster group. So I was always envious, Frank, because you would have less mileage to run every day than what we did. You guys would do the fun, short, fast stuff, and we'd go off and run for, 8 to 10 miles, which,
Yes.
In hindsight, it suited me well for, running marathons ultimately.
I remember that one guy who would just put in, was it like 90 miles a week?
Yeah.
Andrew Carnahan? Carnahan. He just would crank out the miles and just like, he was Forrest Gump, just like,
he was.
And running.
Andrew was our, as you remember, Frank, Andrew was our best cross-country runner and our best 10,000 meter runner. And at the time I thought, wow, 90 miles, that's crazy. But yeah, he was putting in 90, maybe 100-mile weeks. And he was able to hold up. And that was pre like any KetoneAid too, man. I don't know how we did it.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe that's more the norm now for people to do 90, 100 miles, but back then he was doing an extra 30% above. Yeah.
Don't tell him how old we are. Don't tell him how old we are, because back then, and you're right, it was not the norm.
Yeah, I do remember.
College kids are probably doing it,
Maybe they are, or with ketones now, they could be. But with, I remember the last day of practice. So I did all 4 years. That was my biggest, proudest achievement, was I did all 4 years, where I think only 1 out of 3 of the athletes on the team stuck around for all 4 years. So that was my big thing. But I wasn't some gold medalist at the ACC tournaments or anything like that. But, I traveled a little bit and it was fun. But the last day of practice, I looked back and I said, okay, I've been running now for 15, 16, 17 years. I think I'm going to take 15, 16, 17 years off. And I kind of did. Didn't really I like the competing part, but I couldn't really get into the practicing. And now I'm actually trying to actually get back into, just making it more part of my routine now, where I hadn't for many years. Yeah.
So that's where our paths, we are convergent paths. You were shorter distance. I was a little longer distance. I just kept running. For some reason. It was my calling and my passion, and kept running and have enjoyed it ever since. But now it's not like it was. It's just getting harder and harder each year, but I'm still blessed to stay healthy and be able to do it.
Well, let's talk about what you are doing now. So you have, how many different running stores do you have right now?
Yeah. So thank you. Yes, we have 5 different locations. Pacers Running is my business. Started that with my family in 2003. Opened up 1 store in Old Town Alexandria. That was, a few years after you and I graduated from Virginia. And that was my calling, to help runners, help people get in shape and fit, and fit them for running shoes. And 1 store turned into 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And so now we've got 5 stores, and we do online business.
Online, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, online as well. And so I
mentioned the website. What's the website for online?
Runpacers.com. Yeah, check us out.
Then the relay one too.
We have spun off a lot of businesses. Thank you. I need you to help promote what we're doing here. I love it.
The relay.
Well, we spun off a business that sells gently used shoes that are like high performing. They're almost as good as new. Relaygoods.com. This industry has a lot of returns. We are using these returns for good, and it's more sustainable than obviously putting in landfills or other areas where these shoes might go. So runpacers.com for our full price stuff, and relaygoods.com for any of our really high quality, once barely used shoes.
And what I was impressed with the relay was you actually had a decent inventory. I thought it'd be like this sporadic, like, okay, here's one shoe and like, here's a size 10 and here's a size 4. And like, no, like you actually had good quality stuff. And I bought my shoes there, and I think my nephew got a couple there.
Thank you.
So yeah.
And our business really, Frank, has been one shoe at a time, and you grind it out as well. It's one customer at a time for you as well. So you get it. So we appreciate that. And yeah, I mean the business on the relay side, which has been really interesting. It's a 3-year-old company, relaygoods.com you've got to have a lot of inventory, because that consumer experience, as you kind of alluded to, could be not so great if you don't have enough inventory. So yeah, you're going to go there. You're going to find sizes and different inventory at different brands from pretty much all of our major brands that we work with. And it's going to be about 35% lower than what you'd normally pay. And like I said, the shoes are 99% new, and we're 100% guaranteeing them.
Yeah, the ones that I got, you could have fooled me. They looked like they were brand new. Maybe someone walked around in the carpet.
Yeah, tried them on, and you just couldn't sell them as new. But
definitely no one had running them. So then let's talk about our history together in this new world of what I've been working on, which is ketones and ketone ester. I think it was probably 5 or 6 years ago that our families both sometimes we'll be at the same place at Lake Barcroft and Falls Church, and we'd be talking. I'd be like, "Hey, I know you're in the running business. I've got this thing called ketones, and these gold medalists are using it. These Olympians are using it. Tour de France is like, it's the default over there." And your attitude to it was, sure, right. Like you were like, I mean, if I were you, I would probably think the same thing. What is the mathematical chance that the guy that you run with is going to have, some sort of drink that's going to help you in any way, shape, or form? No way in hell. And, I think I maybe sent you a couple bottles, and, without the protocol, you're just down in it with, you got the placebo effect, but the no placebo effect. Like, there's no way that this is going to work. Well, you proved that that was not beneficial, but you did not believe me for 4 or 5 years.
You know what, to say, yeah, I think that's a really accurate recollection. I was skeptical, Frank. I was skeptical. We get hit with a lot of different things in your work as well. You know how it is. Like, everybody's hitting you up with the new latest and greatest. And obviously you being, someone I've known for 20 plus years, you came with some credibility, but you know what? For whatever reason, 5 years ago, I wasn't in a spot where I felt like that this was a space that I wanted to go to or wanted to promote or sell in our stores. So for whatever reason,
well, I'll tell you the reason.
That's cool, and I didn't believe it.
But I'll tell you the other reason. You were fine. You were doing well. You didn't have the need, and it all comes back to the personal need. If you're kicking ass out there, feeling good, some people are just like, that's good. You weren't trying to win marathons. So let's talk real quickly. What you were trying to do is a 25-year streak now of breaking the 3-hour marathon.
Yeah. So, and at that time when we first talked about your product and I love what you're doing, obviously now, and we'll talk about how effective it was for me. But yes, I was skeptical, and I think you're right. I didn't need it at the time. I was running a marathon a year, at least a marathon a year. I'm 48. I'll be 48 next month. So in my early 40s, and my goal is to always break 3 hours. So I had a streak since 1999 where every single year I had run a sub 3-hour marathon. Now, that was easier in the early 2000s than it was here as we sit here in 2024. But in the late, in 2017, 2018, 2019, I was still hitting the time, and I was doing 250, and I was kind of managing things pretty well. And so I didn't feel like I needed anything. I just would go out and run, and I'd be able to hit my time. And that was really fulfilling for me to hit that goal every year. And that's what I needed. So I didn't feel like I needed anything more. So I think you're right.
Yep. And there's nothing wrong with that. And actually it makes this story even better and more believable, because you had this mindset of probably what 99% of the people that are listening have, is not another beet juice makes you run faster, yet another. There's just so much noise out there to know what is real and not real.
You just see it's so much stuff. It's just such overload.
Yeah, and you
I
go to
don't know
these
what
you
to
go to
do.
these conferences, you go to these running conferences. Actually, you're a
Yes.
speaker at many of these running conferences. So all you have is like 50 to 100 products, aisle by aisle by aisle, claiming to do, X, Y, and Z things. So yeah, and you get even 10 times more exposure than the regular consumer that might get a lot of stuff. You get, everything. So
Yeah. Yep. So that's where I was years ago. And that, and I was in my early 40s and I was accomplishing my goal. I also think, and you've got kids, so you get it too. I was early on in having young kids. I've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old now. And so, life sort of it's changed and evolved, and my workload of just life and family and work has evolved over the last 5 years since you introduced this product to me as well.
So then, yeah. So once a year, I'd only bug you once a year. I'd send you, hey, how about this paper that shows 4% improvement? Okay, no, sure. How about this paper showing 15%? So it wasn't working, and then something happened, November 2023. So what happened in November 2023?
Yeah, so I'd always had this goal to get to 25 years of breaking sub 3 marathons. I felt like that was a nice round number, and so I had targeted the New York City Marathon November 3rd of 2023 to break that marathon, that 3-hour marathon for the calendar year of 2023.
And you were having problems last year too. I mean, it wasn't like it was close.
It was getting closer and closer. My PR is 2:31 in the marathon, so I had a 29-minute, cushion there. Recently, it's been 2:56, 2:57, 2:58 in 2022. So the margin for error has decreased over the years. And so I knew that it was going to be close, but I felt like my fitness was in a good enough space where I could do it. And I'm fortunate enough being in the industry that I am, that I get these great perks to run these big marathons. So you get the Rolls Royce treatment, you get the van right to the start, all this stuff. And if anybody who's listening has run the New York City Marathon, the energy is unmatched. It's an amazing event. You've got, 40,000 plus runners, plus the millions of people on course. So I felt like I'm going to make this happen. I've got the energy of the crowd. I got the energy of the participants with me. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get to the 25th sub 3, and it's going to be a big celebration. I had a buddy of mine. He was videoing me. We did a whole story. You can check that out on runpacers.com. I had my whole family there. So this was a big event, Frank, and I was pretty sure I was going to be able to do it. Well, my first step into the marathon, I just was like, this doesn't feel as good as I'd hoped. Stayed on pace, half marathon through. I like to run pretty even or a little negative split, meaning that I want my first half to be about an hour and a half or a little bit lower, so that I could really bring it home the second half. I think negative splitting the marathon is probably the best way to do it, the most efficient, effective way to do it. So I was 129, 40, 129, 30, something like that. So I had, I was on track, but I knew in the back of my mind it wasn't quite there where I thought I'd be. So mile 20, I said to my buddy who was running with me, I can't believe it. It's not going to happen. This is not going to happen. And so negative thoughts start to prevail. And it was a really disappointing last 10K of that race, the last 6 miles. And, I've got a lot going on in life, and the kids and the work and all this stuff. And I didn't realize how meaningful not making it would be for me. But I ran 3:04, so I missed it by 4 minutes it was all in the last 10K, and I was crushed. And I didn't know how I'd feel. I was crying. I was emotional.
I didn't know that.
And I was crushed. And I, the world wasn't going to change whether I ran a sub 3-hour marathon or a 3:04 marathon, right? My world was going to be the same. I'm very blessed to have, great family and business and work and friends and all the stuff going on but I was crushed. And so I said, wow, that's it. So I'm kind of in tears. I'm muddling my way to see my wife. My kids were there. My au pair was there. Like my sister was there. My cousin was there for this whole celebratory moment. And it's like a big dud. Because I didn't make. So I see my wife, and the first thing my perspective from her would be like, all right, great. You're done with this thing. We got a lot to do, kids, all this stuff. First thing she says to me is like, how are you going to find another one to do? And that blew me away. So I thought, okay, all right, that sort of changed my perspective. Maybe it's not over quite yet. But super disappointing, man. It was something that I was building towards. 25 years was super meaningful. And it didn't happen.
And you've been there.
Really frustrating.
You also posted on Facebook that it was your last one. So I don't know when the wife comment,
that happened. And then it didn't comment. Really, you're exactly right. She said that, and I thought that's interesting, but I'm like, no, that's it. Emotionally at that moment. And again, we're looking to do a marathon in the calendar year, November 3rd, after just running 26.2 miles hard, legs tired, emotionally just beat down. I didn't see it. I just couldn't see it. I had a month and, 25 days. Couldn't see it. So I said it's over, and that's what I posted, and I truly believe that and meant that.
And then all the comments started flushing in, like, hey, what about the race in Roanoke? What about? And then, I saw at least 20, if not 50.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot, it was really, and I appreciate your support through it too. You were really dialed in and texting me, and the support and the people who this story resonated with was just crazy to me.
Washington Post did a thing on it.
Washington Post picked it up, and it was like in the Post.
My local neighborhood newspaper, just Lake Barcroft newspaper, because your parents live here, was on the front page of that. That was hilarious.
So this story resonated, and I think, it's about somebody putting himself out there and trying something, and and then failure is real, and it resonates with everybody. Everybody goes through these ups and downs and failures, and I think that made the story hit home with a lot of folks. And so I was just really, I was blown away by the amount of support of people like you and friends and family who reached out. And a lot of them, like you said, was like, hey, you still got a month and a half. You still got time.
So when did you decide to pick a date and try again?
So it took me a week to really get my head around it. Again, my wife was really supportive. And then just a lot of folks saying like, this shouldn't be the end of the story. And so a week later I said, all right, I think that probably something's going to happen, but nothing official. Let me get running again. I took a week off, right? Let me get running again. But in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm putting it back together emotionally. Let me get physically back to a point where I think I can possibly do it. But again, the big part here, Frank, is that I'm 47 years old. I just run a hard marathon.
Yeah. Well, why is it going to be any better? Why is it going to be better?
Exactly.
No, it's New York. If you can't do it in New York, you can't do it anywhere else.
Exactly. So that was in the back of my mind. So that was in the back of my mind, thinking, you know what? I don't know if it is possible, but so I went to the running event. You've been at the running event. It's the end of November. I kind of decided at that point that to do it. I just didn't know where, but I knew I was going to need as much time as possible. So I was talking to a buddy of mine who owns the running stores up in Baltimore, and he said, again, he and his events manager were talking to me, and they said, "We love this story. We're not going to let this die. We have a certified marathon course. Let us put on a marathon for you."
Oh, wow.
I said, okay. That's interesting.
I didn't know that was put on for you.
Yes. So instead of having to go to Tucson, Arizona, December 10th, which I would not have been ready. They said, let's do it the Wednesday or Thursday after Christmas. So I said, all right, let's shoot for Wednesday, December 27th, to give myself enough time to really do it and give myself enough time to get some fitness, do a workout or two, talk to my buddy Frank and see if he's got anything for me.
No. That is a lie. The last thing you thought about was coming to me for help. It was me having to come to you. So you announced, I think, December 1st, and it took me 2 weeks of bugging you, like, maybe now ketones might shift the needle and you might try it. Look at these papers, look at this. So if I remember correctly, and it was kind of good for me that you now needed it. So it was 1 or 2 weeks of saying, hey, let's get together. Let's talk about this. Let's do a protocol. I'm not just going to send you some bottles and just, chug it and think that it magically works. The thing that kind of sucks about these drinks is it's not like a Gatorade gel packet where you're just like, read what's on bottle, drink packet every 30 minutes and that's it. It's complicated. There are things that kind of conflict with it. There's different, you can take too much, you can take not enough. And so I finally got you, in a room at, this salad place.
Yeah.
And I think it was 14 days, 16 days before the race. So I had like we had a 2-week protocol.
So it was Wednesday. I remember the time because this is an important part of the story. It was Wednesday, December 13th. We had 2 weeks. So Wednesday, December 13th, you came with a bag full of stuff and then you gave me the protocol. We had been talking for the weeks after I got back from Austin, where the running event was, where I decided where the race was going to be and all that stuff and when it was going to be. You and I had been in conversation, but it was Wednesday, December 13th, 2 weeks exactly before the race that we sat down at the Sweet.
Okay. So then let's go over the protocol. And this is the protocol that I wouldn't call our default protocol because we do have protocols on the website of how much to take. This is if money is no object, what you call Rolls Royce protocol. If money's no object and you're just like, what's the max? Because you can take too much or a certain amount that we don't know if there's any benefit above that. And this is what actually, why don't you go through what the protocol was?
So, and you and I have talked since, and it's, it can vary, but what I ended up doing was we tweaked my diet a little bit, just talking to you about, less of the sugars and I didn't totally get out of it completely, but
So diet first was
first.
It did not go keto. Some people think, oh, you're going to try and switch me to keto. No, don't go keto. I just said, watch out for high glycemic foods. We don't want to have inflammation from, spiking your blood sugar from a load of pasta, or if you have pasta, have a bunch of fat, in it. So to keep your spiking blood sugar from going up.
So what I would normally do is get up and eat a banana, which I thought that was crazy that you said no. So we stopped doing that. I get up and take a half a cap in the morning. If I was going to run later in the day, and sometimes just work and kids and all that stuff, it would have to be later in the day. But what was crazy to me is that I didn't need the calories that I thought I would need because I was taking the you call it the KE4?
KE4, yeah. You were taking the sucralose version of the KE4, yeah.
So, and then before the run, so let's say, all right, so before I take a half a cap in the morning, which is a low dose, but that would be the first thing I would take when I got up every single morning. Then I would take, before the run, I'd take 20 milliliters of the KE4 before the run, 20 after the run, and then a half a cap at night. And then,
okay, so before your run, you normally would do the banana. You'd have some banana oatmeal.
Yeah, oatmeal, yeah.
So you would cut that out, whether you're running at 7 a.m. or you're running at 11 a.m. You're cutting out the breakfast, and you were doing fasted runs, which you'd never done before. That was not part of your... Why would anyone do a fasted workout?
And those were the times that I was running. It was either 7 a.m. or 11 a.m., generally, just depending on work schedule. Most of the time I was running at 7.
The other thing we tried to tweak in your diet, and you can comment whether that worked or not, was to cut down on your Diet Cokes in caffeine consumption. I think you're at 2 or 3 a day.
2 or 3 a day.
Yeah.
Cut
Were
that.
you able to get down?
I have one or none
One.
during that time.
Okay.
I was really, it's crazy. I mean, it makes sense when you've got an incentive in front of you, a goal in front of you, you can do pretty amazing, incredible things. And so we could talk about what I've done since the marathon, but yes,
We will.
So I was able to really be disciplined because this goal was really important to me. And it was something that I saw slip away. So I was very disciplined. So less caffeine, less of that high fructose intakes, and then fasted runs, which was, dude, that was mind blowing.
Yeah. And okay, so then, and then the game plan was to take none on the day of the actual race, which people would not expect. They would think, you've been trying it for 2 weeks, let's do it on game day. But I was like, no, there are tons of benefits preloading it beforehand that I said, hey, go with what you know, because people, I think, when they're running a marathon, they've taken 20 years to decide the size of the banana that they want. Like, do I want a 6-inch banana, or do I want a long banana? Because it takes them a long time. You're not going to be able to just swoop in and add ketones to that banana. It can mess everything up. So I didn't want you to do any. I think he took a little bit in the morning, but
a little bit. I still stuck with the half a cap, but I didn't do the 20 mils of
right.
I didn't do the 20 mils like I normally be doing.
So you just did your regular thing. So let's talk first about how you felt in those 2 weeks, if you noticed anything, and then we can talk about race day. So did you notice anything with those?
So, yes.
Were your workouts the same speed? First of all, your fasted workouts.
Workouts were good. There were days I didn't feel great. Workouts were good. So there was days that I felt really good, and then I was like, I had a high level of confidence, but it wasn't like I felt phenomenal for the 2 weeks. So it wasn't like, wow, this is it. This is for those 2 weeks.
And how about
those days I felt really good.
So how about taking the 20 mLs after your workout and then going to work? Did you notice anything different as far as your energy level?
Yes.
You just ran 10 miles. Like, you can be kind of tired at work, and no caffeine.
I was really solid, which was crazy to me. I was really solid, had a good 2 weeks of work and focused. And
did you take any ester before bed as well on a daily basis?
I did. Yeah. So I took the half a cap before bed.
Yeah. I think the half a cap in the morning, that might've been a suggestion. That I think that might've been the idea there. Might've been, we're just doing enough to make you not have to have that banana and just, keep you fasted to 11 a.m. I think you might have added that half a cap in the a.m. I think I would tweak that to a 1 or 2 capfuls in the morning.
Okay.
If money was no object and you had that 4-hour gap, go ahead and take a full. The half in the morning, hey, if it suppressed your appetite and made you not need that banana for the first 3 hours, like, that's a win. So, but great. So that's a tiny amount.
If I had an 11 a.m. run, I would take the 20 mLs before the run.
Right.
And I was regimented. I was regimented on it. And I was like, we're going to give this a go, because what did I have to lose?
Right. And what about alcohol consumption? Did you lie that?
I had a beer maybe the whole 2 weeks.
But you normally would have a couple of weeks.
2 a night. Yeah.
Oh, 1 or 2 a night. Okay, 1 or 2 a night. Did you do any of the hard ketones? That's okay if you didn't.
So I did one of the hard ketones. I had a beer, like literally a beer, and then I did one of the hard ketones one night. No offense, I didn't love the taste of the hard ketones. I like
yes. So
it chilled me out. I like that, but I just didn't love the taste.
Yeah, so we have 2.5 stars on Amazon, so people don't like the taste either. But when you read the reviews, you got 1 star saying I don't like the taste, and you got 5 stars saying I felt a buzz. So there's like a
I'm like there. That might have been my review.
But yeah, so the taste, people that are used to sugar like you go to a 0-calorie stevia type drink, the palate is just not for them. So recently we did 2 things to help with the flavor. One thing with the ginger mule, we're coming out with a version that has sucralose in it. So sucralose is, much sweeter, doesn't have that stevia aftertaste, which I don't even taste anymore. So it's hard for me to be a sample. So that one tastes much better for people that are fine with sucralose, because we tend to avoid sucralose because it's not a natural sweetener. But I don't know. I'm skeptical about stevia and monk fruit being so overprocessed. And then we came out with something that's called Dr. Up, which is tastes even worse. And actually, I gave it yesterday to a couple of mine that they do the Amazon advertising, and the husband drank it. He's like, "Oh, this is fine." The wife drank it, but he's okay with bitter stuff. The wife drank it, and she was just like, "No." And then the camera goes back to him, and then you see her running behind him to run to the sink to spit it out. That's how bad it was. Okay. But what we do with the Dr. Up is designed to be unflavored, well, not unflavored. The flavor is, we put on the front of the can, nasty, unsweetened. So we don't add any sweetener, but it's for people to make their own. So it's the base for people to, Dr. Up stands for doctor it up. You doctor up your own drink. So you can add the sucralose, you can add the grapefruit and make your own mixed cocktail. So you can make it good, even though
that might be
the start bad. So,
and I would have, I said one or two a night. I would have a light beer, like one or two every other night or something.
And
it was a regular part of my routine, but it wasn't like I'm drinking like 4% beer. So it wasn't.
Yeah, but I still think that a beer every other night will affect your recovery. It affects your sleep. It affects, all those things matter. So I did ask for you to cut that down. So slight change in diet, non-keto, just, slight tweaking, hold off on, fruit, especially fruit by itself with no other food around it, so you get the blood glucose spike. You didn't put on a blood glucose meter, did you? Did I give you one of those?
I didn't. Yeah, no.
I should have given you one of those so you could see, because that's really good to see real time. I eat a banana. Oh, look, my blood sugar spike, and that creates inflammation. Okay, so then now the working out. You said some days you felt great during the work day. Sometimes your workouts. Well, you said your workouts felt better than they were the 2 weeks beforehand, as far as you were noticing something.
I was noticing something. So prior to New York, these workouts felt better than the ones prior to New York.
Right. Okay.
Work day, I felt good, which was great, because I kept the level of energy. That was something I was worried about.
Yeah. Some people,
fasting was such a hard thing for me, man. But
the fasting workout. Yeah. People fast because they don't realize that sugar is an inflammatory, and part of your training is to build bigger muscles, but then you also are fighting this, 2 steps forward, 1 step back inflammation problem. We've also had CEOs, because you are a CEO, that take it just for the CEO part of it, right, and they find themselves sharper, more productive, like mood boosting, and like, wow, he's cranking through some stuff. So I'm glad you kind of felt a little bit of that stuff. So maybe the ketones, apart from running, just for your CEO hat, has benefit. Okay. So then we went into race day.
So as you said, you and I talked about not, changing what I would normally do on a race day. So I did take the half a cap, and that was what I had. That was what I had for in terms of your K4 product, KE4 product. So get to race started. It was just for me, and I'll send you a pic. I mean, you've seen pictures of it. I mean, literally, the team at Charm City Run in Baltimore, they put together an 8+ event. It was like they were putting on a marathon for 1,000 people, just for me.
But were you the only runner? I thought there was a few dozen.
No, there was one other. There was one other runner. The guy, my buddy, who was documenting me in New York, he also ran it again with me in Baltimore. So I get there, and I go there with my mom and my sister and my brother. And we drive up there, and there are 20 employees from Charm City Run, the company who put it on, just there for me. So it's pretty amazing. So that was. I mean, it was inspiring and a real tribute to the running community, that these guys felt like this was such a cool story and such a cool thing that I was trying to do, that they were there for support on a random Wednesday right after Christmas. Super cool. So they set up the course, and it was out and back on a rail trail that goes from, it's north of Baltimore and close to Pennsylvania. So it wasn't in Baltimore, north of Baltimore. And it was basically 13 miles out and 13.1 miles out, 13.1 miles back. So we start at 9 o'clock sharp, just me and this one other guy. I've got an official starter. There's a gun start. It is the whole 9 yards, like really official. It's an official, we had the timing system out. It's an official, USATF certified course. And so they had set it up. So this was going to be a Boston qualifier and all those things. So I start the run a little after 9 o'clock. And I swear to you, my first few steps, I told you in New York, I was like, not my day. My first few steps were like, this is my day. And it was so, I felt this sense of relief and excitement because I'm like, and you got to measure your energy. This is going to be a 3-hour journey, hopefully less than 3-hour journey. But I was so thrilled that I felt, because I was so unsure. I was completely, it could have gone either way. At that point, my confidence had been shaken because I didn't do it. It's a month and 20 days after the other marathon. I'm trying this new product that my buddy Frank's got. I'm 47 years old and we got this last ditch effort. And this truly was the last ditch effort. But those first few steps, man, it was a relief and excitement. And I remember it gives me chills just thinking about it.
All right. So then how was the first 10 miles, 20 miles?
So the first 10 miles, yeah. So the first 10 miles, we settled in. Now, there were...
What did you eat? What'd you eat? You went back to your regular...
I went back to the gels. I do the gels. Okay. And so I was doing goos.
Breakfast?
And breakfast, a banana and banana and a bagel like I normally would. Yep. So I went back to my regular protocol of things. So the first 10 miles was smooth. And, like anything you do, it's never going to be a straight, easy line. The great part about the event was that it was certified and there was a lot of support. The tough thing is I had a bike lead and my buddy Phil, who is my on rep for On Shoes, he volunteered his time to do the bike lead with me and Johnny. Well, it was muddy and at points, and he had all the gels and the water, and we did some Gatorade too, so sugar, but really diluted. So the bike, the chain fell off his bike. So about mile 10, so yes, through mile 10, smooth sailing. But then at that point, we're a little over an hour in, and I like to really take in a lot of calories over every 45 minutes or so. And so I had not taken something through the first 10 miles and ready to take it right before it. So right before the first 10 miles, the bike chain falls off. So, New York, it's no problem. You got every mile, you got somebody handing you goos and gels and all this kind of stuff. So so my guy, who is my support crew, now is fixing his chain, and I've got to just keep cruising. So I was worried, but I want to stay positive and confident. He didn't get us until about mile 14 after the turnaround, because he was finally able to fix it and catch us, because we're rolling at, 640s. We're clicking off 640, 640, 640. I'm feeling good. My confidence was a little shaken because I didn't have my planned, and I'm not even sure I told you this part. I didn't even have my planned nutrition at that moment until 14. So it took me an hour and 40 minutes to get my first gel.
Okay.
So, but
maybe it helped you mentally. The fasted workouts probably to be like, hey, I don't need photos overriding.
Dude, 100%. So I drew some confidence from knowing that I'd been there before over the last 2 weeks, and I was pretty much unfazed. I got my gels, and we kept clicking off 640s. I did a 635, and I'm like, all right, let's chill out. We don't need to, because to get there, you got to average about 647 pace for the marathon. So I'm like, let's chill out. The wheels could fall off at any moment. We don't need to there was no upside for me to run a 250, right? So I just needed to break 3 hours. So we stayed chill, and my buddy Johnny's like, you look great, you look great, you look great. Phil, who's riding with us, you guys are looking great. And then this time I get to mile 20, I'm like, again, almost getting emotional. I'm like, dude, we're going to do it. We got this. There was no doubt in my mind, because at that point I had a cushion of the wheels would have to totally fall off and I would have to start doing 10-minute miles.
Which can happen. I mean, you run out of
Which can happen.
and like,
that's the way the marathon
it's
is.
real. Like,
it is
mathematical calculation error, and you're zapped.
Yeah.
So
you're zapped, and then you can't, and you're going from 6:40s to 10 minutes, and then you're losing, 3+ minutes a mile, and then it is over. So we stayed conservative, but I'm telling you, man, I felt like I could put on and just squeeze it down 6:30, 6. That's where I felt like in my mind, and it was really exciting. The difference between mile 20 at New York and mile 20 at this Baltimore Marathon was night and day.
It was raining too, right?
It was raining. It wasn't the greatest conditions. A little muddy because this rail trail, they had some pavement, but it was like hard crushed gravel. So there was some footing issues there, but I cruised in the last 10K this time. Again, the emotions like kind of took over, and cruised in, and I ran and finished the race and looked up the clock, and it was 2:57:33.
Nice. And you could have gone faster, but
I could have gone faster. And I was just it overtook with emotion. I was just so excited. They had that crew of people there. My mom was there. My mom, again, lives in your neighborhood. Love Lake Barcroft. Shout out to Lake Barcroft and any of the community members who listen to the podcast.
None.
Great spot. None. Well,
actually, I had one customer I saw a Falls Church order. And I'm like, okay, Falls Church. And then I drilled it down, and they were on my street, but did not know me. Like, worldwide order.
Awesome.
And I got an order in Falls Church down the street, and I would have delivered it to him, but it was already fulfilled at the fill.
It was already.
I could have gotten it for him in like 1 hour. I'd be like, right. Uber Eats, and like
that would have blown him away with customer service.
Yeah.
But so just the, the community that was there, it was a really inspiring. It was a moment. You get these moments in your life, and they're super memorable, and they generally have to do with your kids and your family and stuff like that. And you get some stuff athletically here and there, and the older we get, those are fewer and far between. You remember your moments from Gonzaga and UVA, I'm sure, but this was one of those moments, and it was. I finished, and it was pretty special. And I saw my good buddy who put on the race for me, and he and I embraced, and my mom and my brother and my sister were there, and it was a big deal, and I got it done. 25th year, under 3 hours. And
did you chug in the Ester?
I want to thank you. I truly want to thank you. Yeah, I want to say thank you. So, because I know you were a big part. So what was your going to
I would say, did you chug in the Ester after that race? Or...
So I did. So then I did. I said, yeah, I probably chugged a bottle.
Yeah, why not? It can't hurt. Yeah.
Because at that point, I knew I was going to run for a few days, and I felt like this was this magic potion that had helped me. So,
how was your next day recovery? Because you took an entire bottle. You knew what it felt like in New York.
I felt way better. I think I might have texted you this. Yeah. I felt way better after running faster than I did in New York, where I could barely walk.
Yeah, you could barely walk the next day. In New York, you could barely walk the next day. You took a jog.
And I didn't run after, but I started running a couple days later after that marathon. So before the new year, that was the 27th of December. Before the new year, I was running, some easy runs, but the recovery was that much better.
All right. So congratulations on doing 25 years of, nonstop under three hours. Now the big question is, so therefore the next few weeks, you must have been still taking KE4 because it worked so well, right? No.
So the answer is no. I'm ashamed to say, for
no, it's fine.
No, I didn't. I've gotten back into, so running is obviously a huge part of my life. I own running stores. It's how I reset myself mentally, and the physical benefits are great as well, but mentally. So I have been running every single day, and I haven't. And I'm not sure why. I don't have a real goal yet. I got to think about when this next marathon, if it is going to happen again. but I haven't been taking it. And I swear, and I'm not just saying this for the show or for your brand or for you, I have not felt nearly as good as I was those 2 weeks prior to the marathon. I've actually felt a little off. And
what happens is people internalize their efforts and they say, it was just me. Even though you give some credit to the KU for it, it's kind of like, that's me, because that's how you remember yourself 5 years ago. And that's what the ester kind of actually does. It kind of turns back the clock to make people like they were 5 years ago. So then you just internalize, it's me. So then after your race, where you didn't really have an immediate need, immediate goal, you're just like, I'm just going to go for a run. Like, I'm just going to have my banana. Why take KU4? I don't need to have my splits better, inflammation better. So they didn't take it. And one of the reasons you also said is that was kind of expensive. Yeah. Even though you didn't pay for it, but now I'm going to get all these emails. You get all these emails saying, "Oh, and now I want you to give me free stuff for 2 weeks before my marathon." Not going to happen unless you ran track with me. I'll reserve that for 3 people that I ran with.
Yeah, no, I agree. And
okay, so you said it was too expensive. You said it was too expensive.
Part of it too. I mean, and listen, we are in the business here at Pacers and at Relay of selling even our refurbished shoes. They're still, in the grand scheme of shoes, still quality, high price, high quality items. So, you'll walk into Pacers and you'll spend $150 for a pair of shoes. At Relay, you'll spend $100 for a pair of shoes, even though that's a good deal. So I get the premium market and you're in a premium market, but it is expensive, and it is, I changed my behavior for those 2 weeks, but I need to, continue that habit. And then, that should not be my barrier.
Well, let's talk about how much actual dollar amounts that you were taking. You're taking approximately $20 to $25 worth a day. If we break out the 20 mLs, the half a cap in the morning, half a cap before bed, that was like $20 a day. And that was the, if money's no object. Now what we can shift into is minimum viable, amount. And that's what you can play with. And that goes back to the regular protocols on our website, which would be, you could take as little as 1 capful before your fasted workout. So go back to fasted, see what 1 capful feels like. And then after your workout, see what 1 capful feels like. And that's $5, $4 or $5. That's more than nice and vitamins, but still less than a cup of coffee. And if you can even get half of the benefit that you had in those 2 weeks, it's cumulative. So that's what I would suggest, going down to 1 capful and try different amounts. Try 2 capfuls before and none after. Try none before fasted workout and 2 after, and see if it kind of makes your work day better, because it goes more to your brain as opposed to your muscles. And another thing I'd start playing with, so after you play around with that before and after different amounts, then I'd start working on the more advanced stuff, which is actually running with it, the actual races with it, and seeing if you feel comfortable to actually have your race with either just ketone esters or ketone esters with sugar, which,
I see runners out there, and you don't have to go in. I see runners out there all the time taking your competitor, and I'm sure there's runners out there, a ton of them taking your stuff too. Yeah. So I see it. It is prevalent now in this space. Yeah.
So you're referring to the HVMN stuff, which I think also kind of helped in your level of taking it seriously, because you were getting bombarded by this sales rep and, selling the HVMN stuff. You're like, hey, isn't that kind of somewhat related to what Frank's doing? Like, maybe Frank's stuff really is real. And then we sat down and discussed the differences, and just real quick.
And why yours better? And right. you talked me through why yours is so much better.
Yeah. So we just real quickly, that drink is, that company used to have the ketone ester. They lost the ketone ester. So then they tried to find the next best thing. And they found R13-butanediol, which we ironically sell the exact ingredient as hard ketones, an alcohol alternative. They're selling it for sports performance. So we say it gives you a buzz, makes you relaxed. And they say, take it before your LSATs, which is just, mind blowing. So, the ketone ester is where all the research is. And whenever they have on their website citations to science, it's all ketone ester science that they're citing, because the 2 papers using 1,3-butanediol showed negative performance or no performance gain at all. So they can't cite those. So they just cite the ketone ester, and they're like, oh, it's just as good. It's not. Actually, you know what? We can even, we could even take a couple weeks. Go ahead, go use their stuff because you can get some stuff for free. Go use their stuff for 2 weeks, and then come back and use our stuff for 2 weeks. That'd actually be a great test.
So, I would have been skeptical 5 years ago of what you're saying. No longer. I believe you. I don't even need to test it. I believe you. I mean, I'm not just saying this. I called you after the race. I said, I can't believe it. It was like, I felt it was not even close. Night and day difference. And
so
I could not put my finger on any other factor, any other variable that I changed other than what you gave me.
All right, thank you, and that's a good sound bite. That was a good 20-second sound bite. But and the way that I got your protocol was from another marathoner. He would run marathons every 3 weeks. He was younger, and he took it 3 or 4 times in practice. Loved it, and then on game day he did fasted workouts with the ester. On game day he took a power bar, an apple, and the ketone ester. He said, Frank, I don't know, I felt horrible. It just felt. I was running with the Kenyans. He's like a 220, 215 marathoner. And he's like, it just felt hard. I felt heavy, just couldn't hold on. And then I said, okay, well, let's change the protocol around. What I want you to do now is I gave him just 1 week worth of trying the ester. And then I said, on game day, go back to your regular protocol. And, so he did that. He loved it in the practice, and then regular banana or whatever he did. And then he said, Frank, I had an 18-month PR. I was hanging with the Kenyans. I felt light in my feet. And could the ketones still be in my system? I said, well, not directly, because the BHB, if you were to test your blood ketones, you wouldn't have any ketones. But it was that for him, because he runs so many marathons, the recovery of it was like he was tapering for the Olympics. He just felt lighter. But also there are, science that shows an EPO increases EPO, which is what is technically illegal if you shoot it up, but it's legal if you have it through altitude training, and it helps recover the body. So increasing the EPO, increasing his recovery, just feeling more fresh. And then on game day, it also builds mitochondria, which you blow up during your marathon run. It just builds that up, stockpiles it. And there are papers showing a 15% improvement in recovery on multi-day Tour de France type races. So, having all that benefit, on game day, it was fine. So that became a default protocol that I then applied it to you and said, hey, let's take the risk out. So now the question is, do we want to set a new goal of, or do you, I'm not breaking it. I'm not breaking
You're on
the
the team now, buddy.
Maybe the lights here, maybe, but, do you want to do like a 4-time, 2-hour, 45-minute, something with, do it early enough so it's not your last ditch effort. So if the wheels come off, they come off. But, that could be the next thing that we do, is trying to use ester in the race, because ketone ester is a different fuel source than sugar. Sugar, everyone thinks carbs are king. Well, I say, well, the ketones are the emperor. The glucose, you need energy, sure, but it's creating lactate, so lactic acid build up, making your legs feel heavy. And it's also creating inflammation, which causes problems. It raises your heart rate. And here, this is ketones. It's a more efficient fuel source. The older you are, the more benefit you get. So maybe we should try to have a race where you are actually going for time and, seeing if you can implement ketones either by itself or, with glucose for the actual run.
So I love it. I'm glad we were talking today as we sit here. I don't know when you're going to post this, but we're sitting here March 13th. I'm going to start up with the small doses again, and then build into that, and then pick a goal race. Yeah, maybe go for it, but not a last ditch one in November. I think maybe try something like Bramwell's in June or something like that.
Yeah, it's something that are you going to try and break 3, or you're going to actually try to hit 9?
Definitely break 3, but try to break 250. What the heck?
Yeah.
No. At this point, I reached my goal of what I wanted to do was 25 years. So if I blow up and going after the sub 250 and run, 305, then I'd still accomplish what I wanted to do.
Yeah, let's see what happens with lower doses and play around with it. And you might, you'll probably never get to the point where the cost benefit analysis would be worth $20 a day for you all the way through to June. That's probably too much, but you might find special occasions, important work day where it's like, I'm really on when I take the 20 mLs after my run. Today I'll do it. Maybe you do it once a week. People, use it selectively based on the importance of the day and what they need to get done. And so it's one guy only uses it for, CEO and sales. And he said his January numbers like blew through were just like crazy. And then he ran out of ester. And then February, he looked at February, he's like, I know it's a shorter month, but accounting for that, he's like, what was different? He's like, the goddamn ketone esters. And I said, what happened was you were kicking butt in January and you just thought, this is me. This is, you internalized it. And then he brought back the ketones, and his numbers just magically went right back up. So for him, the $20 a day, $30 a day, like it paid for itself. So that it was, so maybe, look at your business, and if it helps and it's worth that much, then great. But, I think we can find something that's in the, $5 to $10 a day worth that's repeatable and, worth it. It's all about value. And, there are cheaper products out there that are $1, $2, but if they don't do anything, I actually say that they're more expensive.
Oh, absolutely.
More expensive when something does nothing. This actually does something, then it's up to you to decide, where to, draw the line.
Well, I'm a believer. I am a disciple, Frank. So I'm following your lead on it. So we're going to start with something smaller, and then we'll build into something bigger here as the year goes on.
During the race protocol, which we can work on, whether we do just ketones or ketones and sugar will be the tough one, because people would think, oh, the dual fuels, but actually a paper just came out real quick that compared sugar and ketones. And I said to the scientists, please, I've been bugging you for 3 years. Can you have a third arm that's just ketones? Like, no, why would ketones alone beat the two? 2 years later, the title of the paper, Ketone Ester alone increased running economy by 4% above sugar and ketones and sugar alone. So there's some ration. Doesn't mean that one race, that one type of athlete, that 1 3-hour run or whatever they did, doesn't mean that it applies to every single person. When something works and doesn't work, I just say it doesn't work for that, or it does work for that exact situation. So, we'll have to see what works for you. And maybe on your long Sunday runs, that's when we would play around at different amounts, with glucose, without glucose, and, find something that you can take with you into game day. But I ask people, months, you should be doing this for weeks, if not months, before bringing it into game day. But I get emails all the time, text messages saying, I've got a race in 2 days. How should I take the ester? I'm like, this is how. Don't. Or I say load it. I say load it up for the next 2 days before the race.
Yeah.
Don't take it before bed the night of the race, because you'll have other problems sleeping and getting nervous. And then take, a large amount after your race, and then the next day you'll be recovered. But great. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you made a big impact, and it was it really was a moment. And the Washington Post did a second story on it, and as I promote and pat myself on the back here, I couldn't believe it. I grew up here in Arlington. I know you grew up in the area. I grew up reading the Washington Post, and like you, I'm sure we would find our name somewhere in the Post because of some track race we did. It'd be in the back, somewhere on the sports page in the high school section at times. But I made the story made, not me, the story made the Metro section front page.
Nice.
Second time at the beginning of this year.
Now we got to get ketones on the Washington Post.
I felt guilty that it wasn't mentioned. I did mention it to the publisher, but it fell on the author, but it fell on the cutting floor. But I do appreciate everything. It was
well, when you break when your goal is to break 250 and you break 245, then you can be like, why did you? Did you just do it for drama that you made it so close before? Why did you go it out?
Right.
Yeah. Like, it's the ketones.
That's a good point. Maybe I don't want to, they'll think this whole thing was a hoax. Yeah, maybe I don't want to run too fast. But no, I would love to see where I can go as a 48-year-old. It would be pretty awesome to see how fast I could run. So.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.